37. Have we become more moral? As might have been expected, the whole ferocity of moral stultification, which, as is well known, passes for morality itself in Germany, hurled itself against my concept beyond good and evil. I could tell you some nice tales about this. Above all, people tried to make me see the incontestable superiority of our age in regard to moral sentiment, and the progress we had made in these matters. Compared with us, Caesar Borgia was by no means to be represented as high a man, the sort of superman which I declared him to be. The editor of the Swiss paper The Bund went so far as not only to express his admiration for the courage displayed by my enterprise, but also to pretend to understand that the intended purpose of my work was to abolish all decent feeling. Much obliged. In reply, I venture to raise the following question. Have we really become more moral? The fact that everybody believes that we have is already an objection to the belief. We modern men, so extremely delicate and susceptible, full of consideration one for the other, actually dare to suppose that the pampering fellow-feeling which we all display, this unanimity which we have at last acquired in sparing and helping and trusting one another, marks a definite step forward, and shows us to be far ahead of the man of the Renaissance. But every age thinks the same. It is bound to think the same. This, at least, is certain, that we should not dare to stand amid the conditions which prevailed at the Renaissance. We should not even dare to imagine ourselves in those conditions. Our nerves could not endure that reality, not to speak of our muscles. The inability to do this, however, does not denote any progress, but simply the different and more senile quality of our particular nature, its greater weakness, delicateness, and susceptibility, out of which a morality more rich in consideration was bound to arise. If we imagine our delicateness and senility, our physiological decrepitude, as non-existent, our morality of humanization would immediately lose all value. No morality has any value, per se. It would even fill us with scorn. On the other hand, do not let us doubt that we moderns, wrapped as we are in the thick cotton wool of our humanitarianism, which would shrink even from grazing a stone, would present a comedy to Caesar Borgia's contemporaries, which would literally make them die of laughter. We are indeed, without knowing it, exceedingly ridiculous with our modern virtues. The decline of the instincts of hostility, and of those instincts that arouse suspicion, for this, if anything, is what constitutes our progress, is only one of the results manifested by the general decline in vitality. It requires 100 times more trouble and caution to live such a dependent and senile existence. In such circumstances, everybody gives everybody else a helping hand, and, to a certain extent, everybody is either an invalid or an invalid's attendant. This is then called virtue. Among those men who knew a different life, that is to say, a fuller, more prodigal, more superabundant sort of life, it might have been called by another name. Possibly cowardice, or vileness, or old woman's morality. Our mollification of morals, this is my cry. This, it you will, is my innovation, is the outcome of our decline. Conversely, hardness and terribleness in morals may be the result of a surplus of life. When the latter state prevails, much is dared, much is challenged, and much is also squandered. That which formerly was simply the salt of life would now be our poison. To be indifferent, even this is a form of strength. For that, likewise, we are too senile, too decrepit. Our morality of fellow-feeling, against which I was the first to raise a finger of warning, that which might be called moral impressionism, is one symptom the more of the excessive physiological irritability, which is peculiar to everything decadent. That movement which attempted to introduce itself in a scientific manner on the shoulders of Schopenhauer's morality of pity, a very sad attempt, is in its essence the movement of decadence in morality, and as such it is intimately related to Christian morality. Strong ages and noble cultures see something contemptible in pity, in the love of one's neighbor, and in the lack of egoism and of self-esteem. Ages should be measured according to their positive forces. Valued by this standard, that prodigal and fateful age of the Renaissance appears as the last great age, while we moderns, with our anxious care of ourselves and love of our neighbors, with all our unassuming virtues of industry, equity, and scientific method, with our lust of collection, of economy, and of mechanism, represent a weak age. Our virtues are necessarily determined, and are even stimulated by our weakness. Equality, a certain definite process of making everybody uniform, which only finds its expression in the theory of equal rights, is essentially bound up with a declining culture. The chasm between man and man, class and class, the multiplicity of types, the will to be oneself and to distinguish oneself, that, in fact, which I call the pathos of distance, is proper to all strong ages. The force of tension, nay, the tension itself, between extremes, grows slighter every day. The extremes themselves are tending to become obliterated to the point of becoming identical. All our political theories and state constitutions, not by any means excepting the German Empire, are the logical consequences, the necessary consequences of decline. The unconscious effect of decadence has begun to dominate even the ideals of the various sciences. My objection to the whole of English and French sociology still continues to be this, that it knows only the decadent form of a society from experience, and with perfectly childlike innocence takes the instincts of decline as the norm, the standard of sociological valuations. Descending life, the decay of all organizing power, that is to say, of all that power which separates, cleaves gulfs, and establishes rank above and below, formulated itself in modern sociology as the ideal. Our socialists are decadents. But Herbert Spencer was also a decadent. He saw something to be desired in the triumph of altruism.